Hi, this is Billy from Ever Expanding Life. Today we're going to take a look at a riding mower to try to figure out why it won't start. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Also look for our other content on YouTube or at our website everexpandinglife.com. Hope you enjoy. So today we're trying to get this mower running, and as you see, it won't start. I'm sitting on the seat, so the safety should be disengaged. Got the clutch held down all the way. We've got gas in the gas tank, but nothing. So the first thing I'm going to do is test the battery. Make sure we have enough juice to even start. Okay, so the battery is reading over 12 volts. So it shouldn't be because of the battery. Now these terminals are not the cleanest. Well, they're not really extremely dirty. But we'll go ahead and clean them up to make sure that we're getting a good connection. The hot terminal is a little worn, so I'm going to use some channel locks. So our bolt is quite rusty, so I'm going to clean that up. Make sure that you're wearing safety glasses and some gloves if you're going to use a wire wheel. Remember, this is not an instructional video on how to use any of these kind of tools. If you're unsure, please defer to someone who knows how to use them. So I'm going to first take the nut, the rusty nut, get it cleaned up. There we go. Good as new. Now the bolt. Okay. So now that's good as new. So now we're going to make sure that the terminals are as clean as possible. You can do that using sandpaper. I'm going to use a wire wheel. But to make sure that I don't ground out here, touching any other metal while I'm cleaning up the positive, we're going to take this battery out to give plenty of room to work. This battery is held in by this bracket. So there it goes. Okay. Alright, so she's out. So now the connections are nice and clean, and there's no question that we have contact there. Just to make sure, we're going to test on the connectors. Still have over 12, so our connections are tight. Okay, we've cleaned the connectors, and it still won't start. So we can rule out the battery and the battery terminals and their connections. So the next thing we're going to look at is the seat safety. These type of mowers have a special feature on them so that they won't start if you're not sitting in the seat. On this, it's triggered by this connection right here. Okay, in this one, when you sit down on the seat, it separates this connection right here. Okay, so that means that if it's touching, it's going to short out the start. So I'm going to disconnect these, which in effect separates them. So now, if the problem was in that, they should now be separated unless there's a short somewhere along the wires. Maybe it could have melted somewhere and shorted out. So we're going to try it now with those off. Okay, now with the safeties unhooked, still nothing. Make sure you don't leave them unhooked because they're there for a reason, so that the mower doesn't start when you're not expecting it. When you're standing up and not on it, it's for your safety, so make sure you hook it back. So now we've reattached the wires, and we still haven't ruled out that it could be shorted along the line of that, but it's definitely not shorted there. There's a fuse. Make sure that it's good. You'll see that's unbroken, so that's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is take a look to see if the ignition switch could be the problem. We're going to pull the plug off the back of the ignition switch and test some of the wires. We're going to hook our negative to a screw on the engine, and we've got our positive to where the hot comes in, and we'll see that it's reading full voltage right there. So now I have the tester set to checking continuity, and if the tips touch, you'll see that it beeps. So what this allows me to tell is if 2 points are somehow connected. I'm going to check the continuity, and she's not short now. Okay, and so that's our hot coming from the battery. And this one, we'll see if we check the continuity. Is the one that goes to the starter. And if we check it grounded, we'll see that there's no voltage coming out as we would expect because it's disconnected. Okay, so now I'm going to take this piece of wire and I'm going to try to jump the ignition. And if you can hear that clicking, you'll see that it's doing the exact same thing that it was doing when I was turning the key. Nothing. So I've pulled the ignition switch out the front. There's some squeeze clips that you get to from inside that allow it to release. Now I used my tester to check some of these connections, and it seems that we may have a short that I suspect is running underneath the body of the mower, in between the cover here and the chassis. So this is where the big work comes in. I'm going to have to take the seat off. I'm going to have to take some bolts out that are underneath these slip pads and the caution sticker. I'm going to have to take out the handles. I'm going to have to take out the battery and remove the spring. Lots of work, lots of work. Okay, hard part done. So now we're going to take a look and see what we got. So I've traced the wires. There don't seem to be any breaks. Okay, so we can see the ignition and the power cable comes in right here. And to verify that, we're going to check the conductivity from the battery. So that's where the power comes in. Now we want to see where it goes out to the starter, or at least from the ignition. So that one is this one here. So now I want to know what the key triggers. So I'm going to first test without. We have the power in the on position, so that's the power, running power. But we want to see the ignition, so I'm going to turn the key. So the ignition triggers this one. That's the orange wire right here. Flows through here. Goes to the clutch. Comes up from the clutch over here to the blading gauge. Then from there to the solenoid. Blades off. Now I just have to engage the clutch. So we have connectivity all the way to the solenoid. Okay. This hooks to the battery. So we have conductivity from the battery to the solenoid. This one sends out to the starter. So we're going to check from here to the starter. Conductivity. So that means, I believe our problem is right here in the solenoid. So now we're going to take that off. So we picked up a replacement solenoid. The new one is a little bit different than the old one. It has an extra terminal here, but it comes with a little jumper, and if your mower doesn't have two wires to go to it, you take this jumper and you're going to mount it right here to the mounting bracket. You want to make sure you have a good connection between this and your main ground. So if you're not sure, you can use your electrical tester to make sure, or just make sure you sand the area real good where this connects to the mower or your bolt. So you want to make sure that's nice and clean. With ours, we can tell there's a good connection, because if I take the tester and set it to connectivity, and I touch one end against the terminal that goes to the battery, the ground terminal, and the other end against the screw where I'm going to mount that, I get a beep. So we're fine. You want to make sure that you hook your wires up the same way that they came off. Okay, now we got both the main wires hooked up to the solenoid. We're going to take the wire from the ignition and we're going to hook it up right here. Make sure you adjust the angle of your wires so that everything will fit in here nicely. So now we're going to mount the solenoid here. Now this bolt had a nut on it that was holding a ground wire in place. So we're going to put that back on there. And we're going to put this little jumper that came with the solenoid on the same one. And then put our nut on. Alright, the new solenoid is all in. So now before we put everything back together, we're going to give the mower a test to make sure that she's going to run. Make sure that that was what was causing the problem. So I'm going to temporarily put the battery back in, hook it up, and then see if she'll start. Okay, so we've changed the solenoid. We've got the battery back in place. We're going to make sure that the blade is disengaged, which also disengages the blade safety switch. We're going to push the clutch down, which also releases the clutch safety switch. Now we're going to see if changing the solenoid worked. So now all we got to do is put this thing back together. Okay, now we're going to reattach the skid pads and the caution label a little better with some of this heavy-duty headliner and carpet adhesive. Gotta wipe it down a little bit first. So now we've got it all back together. See if she works. Back in business. So here's the culprit, the solenoid, and here's what we got to replace it. I hope this helps. Don't forget to look for our other content on YouTube and also on our website, everexpandinglife.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time, and may you be blessed with an ever-expanding life.